Hello, and welcome to Appleton Engaged. I'm your host, Timber Smith, DEI coordinator for the city of Appleton.
And today I'll be your co-host. I'm Brianna McCooley, and I work in public health for the city of Appleton.
Hey, Brianna, thanks for joining us again today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. Appleton Engaged is a podcast that explores the many people, organizations, and resources that make our community a great place to live, work, and play. So whether you're a longtime resident or just getting to know Appleton, join us as we learn more about our community together. And we have a great guest today.
We do?
Yes, we do. We always do.
That wasn't a question. That was a we do.
Oh, okay. See, that's what I'm talking about. We do. All right. And this week's guest is Lisa Strandberg, Executive Director of Pillars. Lisa, how are you doing?
I am doing great, Timber. How are you?
We're doing really, really good. All right. You ready to jump in?
I'm ready to jump in.
Okay. Can you please tell us about yourself and your association with Appleton in the Fox Cities region?
I can. I am as Wisconsin as they come. I grew up in the Green Bay area. I am the product of dairy farmers and paper mill workers.
Oh.
I moved to the Fox Cities. I've spent my whole professional life here since the mid-'90s, and started out with Kimberly-Clark and wandered my way into freelance writing and then into the nonprofit sector where I've been since 2011. So been working on behalf of vulnerable people, and happy to be doing it. It's where I fit. It's where I belong.
That's pretty cool. And there's nothing cooler than being born and raised Wisconsin. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little biased being born and raised Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. I mean, I believe, Brianna, you're born and raised Wisconsin too, right?
Ooh, not born but raised.
Oh,
we'll take it. We'll take it.
And I'm very Wisconsinite, so.
All right. Can you please share a little something about, can you please share with us about Pillars?
Sure, I can. Pillars is a housing and homelessness nonprofit based here in Appleton. We provide shelter, support, and solutions to address housing needs in the greater Fox Cities. We have been around as Pillars since 2018, but we're around for much longer than that as 3 legacy organizations that came together through a merger. So those former organizations all served and met different housing needs, homelessness needs, and decided that they could do so better together. And that's why 5 years ago, we came together under one umbrella to better serve our clients. You know, often a merger is about saving money. Right. That wasn't the idea.
No.
The idea here was to make sure that our clients were served the best that they could be, that our tenants and our program participants were served
like
the
to
best
close,
that they could be.
Possibly to close gaps.
That's right. To make sure that those handoffs were warm and friendly and positive, and that no one fell through the cracks. That was the idea.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And when I moved back to Appleton, I was really surprised that Pillars encompassed all of that, because I have been in places where I've seen people stand in lines forever. So it was, you go here for one line and you go here and you're another line. And I imagined that was a difficult but possibly rewarding merger to have.
Yeah, it was difficult. It remains difficult. We started just a year and a half or so before COVID began. And mergers take time. Bringing 3 cultures together into one culture takes time.
And then COVID hit.
And then COVID changed everything.
Wow.
And changed everything in a big way. And it was a major disruption and interruption of that process of bringing our organizations together. But in a lot of ways, it did bring our organizations together because the needs were so great and the desire to respond was so strong that everybody pulled together to make that happen.
Yeah. Lisa, I think when a lot of people think of Pillars, they think of housing and a shelter. And I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about what are some of those other aspects that go in that help people to overcome some of the barriers from obtaining and maintaining adequate, affordable housing?
Sure, great question. We are, I would say, most visible through our 2 shelters, our adult and family shelter, our adult shelter. However, we do have a lot of programs that wrap around that. One being our street outreach program. So we look for folks who are unsheltered and connect with them, build trust with them. They're often at the loneliest point they've ever been in their lives. And so our team looks to draw them in, to connect, to help them meet needs, and eventually draw them into services. We've got a great prevention and diversion program that's really intended to catch folks who are on the brink of a homeless experience and to really stop that experience before it starts. That program's super exciting and effective and so needed when we've got so many renters in particular who are burdened by the cost of housing. We've got housing programs then that exit from shelter into supportive housing where services come along with a case manager who provides coaching and appreciation and support. And then just an affordable housing program where folks simply need that rent adjustment in order to make ends meet. So a whole suite, a whole spectrum of services besides just those 2 shelters that are most familiar.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I'm really interested in particular in this immersion program so in public health, we talk a lot about upstream care. So we're trying to make sure that we catch people before they get to that point where they're, drowning, right? So how can we help them ahead? And this idea of really doing some preventative housing counseling and all that is fascinating.
It is fascinating, and the case managers who do that work are incredibly creative. They really work with the strengths of the folks that they're connecting to service. They think with them about what resources they have, what support systems they have, how they can leverage those support systems. We might cover the electric bill for a family member that they're staying with for a month. We might invest in creative ways like that in order to make sure that people have somewhere safe to be that isn't shelter and that certainly isn't outdoors.
That's really creative, actually. And I would think it's so much more effective to try to catch it on the front end before you lose your housing than trying to fix it on the back end once it's lost.
Absolutely, right. That we call our crisis housing program crisis housing for a reason, and we want to keep people from getting to that point of crisis because that's a trauma. And if we can avoid that trauma, it's a lot easier to keep someone safe and in place where they are. And that is really what we aim to do. It's not only effective from a human perspective, it's also cost effective because running a 24/7, 365 shelter is costly. So if we can keep people where they're at, that keeps the cost down too, and the support that we need from the community is less. Yeah. Not that it's small. We need a lot of support from the community, don't get me wrong.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it takes the entire community. Do you have any idea, like, on the numbers that you serve? I don't want to put you on the spot,
Sure.
but like, what are the numbers of people you serve in any time frame? Like, what does that kind of look like so our listeners can know?
Sure. It's about 1,500 people a year, and that includes hundreds of children. It's about 900 people, adults and kids, in our 2 shelters, and about 300 or so in our prevention program. We serve hundreds in our stable and supportive housing programs as well. So across all of that programming, it's really housing instability and experiences of homelessness are much more common than I think the community might imagine.
And I'm imagining that your number of staff is way less than that.
Right. It is way less than that. Yes, it's about 70 folks.
Wow.
So the bulk of those folks work in our 2 shelters, right? Those are operations that run around, in one case, around the clock, in the other case, nighttime only. So it takes a lot of people to keep a facility like that staffed. But right, we're 70 strong and 70 incredible people, among the most compassionate people you'd want to meet. Really
Yeah.
amazing.
So, but 2 shelters, you said. And is there any other locations besides, where are these 2 shelters?
Sure,
too?
sure. Great question.
Yeah.
We have 6 sites as an organization. We are concentrated right in the College Avenue downtown corridor.
Mm-hmm.
Our 2 shelters, the adult and family shelters, across Division Street from the post office. Our adult shelter is tucked in behind St. Vincent de Paul on West College Avenue. We have a resource center that is on Mason Street in the old education wing of St. Matthew Evangelical Lutheran Church. Our 321 office is an outpost for street outreach and some of our housing programs, and that's at 321 North Appleton Street. We've got our main office, our administrative offices, and housing programs work out of our Hancock Street office, so on Law Street, just a little bit north of Lawrence University. And our Ascend program is the one exception to that downtown corridor. Ascend is located in Neenah, off Breezewood Lane, and that's a program for young adults with mental health challenges and housing needs.
That's a serious operation.
It's big. It's big, Timber.
That's a big operation.
I'm tired at night when I go home. There's a lot going on every day.
Well, and I imagine the 70 other people you work with are tired too.
They are tired, and their care and compassion keeps them going.
What are misunderstandings or misconceptions that people have about our unhoused population here in Appleton?
Sure. I think the one easy misconception to address is the idea that these folks just need to get a job. They just need to get a job. It's so much more complicated than that. There are so many barriers that these individuals face. Barriers around health, physical health, mental health. Barriers around age. We're seeing an increasing number of aging and older adults who are experiencing homelessness. There are barriers around history, maybe a criminal background, barriers around it. There's a whole host of barriers that people face. It's not about laziness. It's not about laziness. It's not about just get a job.
Are there, is it true, like, that there is a population out there also that are the working homeless?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, especially among those who stay in our shelters, the adults who stay with us, 40 to 60% of them are employed. But imagine being in a shelter, going through a crisis. Maybe you have kids, you're working. You need to take care of your own child care as well. So there's a whole lot going on. To think of these folks as lazy is really quite an insult, because they are some of the hardest working people you'll come across trying to overcome what they've faced in their lives.
Yeah, I'm interested in hearing a little bit more too about specifically how. So we talked about a lot of these barriers, right? So, even bad credit from when you were 18 years old can carry through to when you're 50 years old, and maybe you're finally getting it, but it's still difficult to rent an apartment if you have that on your history. How does your staff work with people to try and get them to a place where they're able to reset if it's something like that?
Right. They really focus on setting goals and keeping those goals really focused and keeping at work toward those goals. So every individual, every household who works with us has their own case plan, and they're working toward those goals. And then our case managers are coming alongside of them and advocating for them, are reaching out to landlords. Our housing market's very challenging right now. And when a landlord gets 100, 200 applications for an apartment, they don't need to consider whether to accept an application from someone who's got any blemish on their history, whether it's a credit blemish, a criminal background, or what have you. So that our case managers are really working to help knock those barriers down as the clients themselves are working toward those goals and overcoming those barriers.
Are there any, well, let's say one of our residents runs into someone who's unhoused and they want to try to help connect them to the resource. How does that happen? Is that the best way to go? What should, is there any advice or guidance on what should be done in that case? Because I mean, we have a very caring community, and I think most of us, if we can be helpful, I think we want to be helpful.
Yeah, calling Pillars 920-734-9192 is a great thing to do. We love to hear about folks who are out there. Often we are aware of them, and often our team's already connected with them, but not always. So when we hear from community members who are concerned, who want to help, letting us know who they've seen, where they've seen them, maybe an identifying piece of clothing or something their name, having their first name's a big help, so that we can reach out and connect. One of the other misconceptions that people often have is that someone who's in an experience of homelessness is dangerous, right? That they are scary. And often people in homeless experiences are likelier to be victimized than to victimize someone, right? They're likelier to have their things stolen, to have some violence perpetrated against them. So being friendly, reaching out, connecting person to person is really a great thing to do, because it is an incredibly isolating experience. Letting them know that you see them as a human being, and reaching out to Pillars and letting us know who you've encountered, where you've encountered them is a great thing to do.
Okay. Are there any events that Pillars has through the year that it would be good for listeners to know about? Is it something they can show up to and support Pillars through, or?
Sure. Yeah, we host something called Conversations Over Coffee. So that happens every other month, even months, on the first Thursday, 7:30 to 8:30 a.m. You don't even have to get out of your pajamas. Just pour yourself a cup and fire up your computer and join us. And what we try to do is feature a topic that connects to housing and homelessness. We often bring a partner along, kind of like a conversation like this, and illuminate the topic of housing and homelessness for our community. So we do that around the year. We also have a gala event called Keys to Hope in October, and we'll start sharing more word about that in August. People can start buying tickets and come on out and support us, join us, learn more, meet some of our team.
Is there any additional info you feel is important for listeners to know?
I just can't emphasize enough to treat people as people, no matter what they might be experiencing, and to remember that this is an experience. It's not the definition of who this person is. And often people move through that experience. I met someone named Steve who came by our office at Christmas time a couple of years ago to donate with his employer. And he let us know that he was there because he had benefited from our services some years ago, and that he was inspiring his team members at work to support the cause. And he was the one who let me know that, the weather. We always think of the weather when someone's unsheltered, and that's the hardest part about a homeless experience. And for him, it was the loneliness, it was the isolation, it was feeling utterly without support in the world. So just remembering to treat people as people and recognize them as humans, and do what you can to be caring, if nothing else.
I appreciate that so much, what you just said. And yeah, just to sit with that idea, like, yes, everyone's a person. We all go through different experiences. We all have different levels of stability. And just to remember that it's our level of stability where we are at that point in time isn't necessarily defining who we are.
That's right.
Thanks for saying that.
I've always personally tried to take the approach of making sure that when I do see someone, I make eye contact and I smile at them and I acknowledge their existence and I say hello, and just try to give them just that little piece of humanity. It's simple, doesn't cost anything,
That's right.
but I hope that I could only imagine. I know a lot of people look away, and I could only imagine what that feels like being on the other end of people looking away.
Right. And imagine if none of us did. If we all did what you do, Timber, smile, doesn't cost you a thing.
Right. Okay. Can you please share a narrative that'll help our listeners understand the importance of pillars?
Yeah. I'm thinking about a young mom with several kids who spent some of this winter in our winter shelter overflow program. They were needing shelter. We were full, as we always are, especially in our adult and family shelter. So thanks to support from the city of Appleton, our winter shelter overflow program was able to extend capacity of our shelter and keep her and her kiddos safe until she was able to get a spot in the shelter. And just lately, she was over at our Hancock Street office with her kiddos, picking up keys to an apartment.
Yes.
So, so she moved through the continuum, and she and her kids have a safe place to be now, and that's a huge win, And they'd probably been sleeping in their car before they were able to get first into a hotel, an alternative to shelter, until that shelter space was available, and do the work with their case manager until that housing became available too. So
That's wonderful.
yeah.
And now when people move into this space like that, are they continuing to work with pillars?
Often they are. So it depends on which type of housing they qualify for and they wind up in. It might be a supportive housing situation where they've got that case manager, that cheerleader, that advocate working alongside of them. It might be a situation where they've got a rent adjustment. It might be a situation where they're in our single room occupancy program where they're living with 3 or 4 other adults, single adults who've left shelter, and they've got a built-in community and a built-in support network. So and case management as a crew, as a group. So it really depends on the individual and their own barriers and their own needs.
It very much sounds like there's an understanding like that it can't be a one-size-fits-all approach to homelessness. And like different people have different needs or are at a different place in their journey. And it sounds like there's a real thoughtfulness in the strategy for providing this resource.
Our frontline staff, our case managers are, absolutely wonderful. And they see each person as an individual. And that's what it takes. Everybody's barriers are different. Everybody's at a different place.
And it's wonderful, too, that it's not just, we'll help you when you're, like, living on the street. It's, we're going to help you to make sure, try and make sure you don't get there. And then if you do get your keys to an apartment, we're still going to continue following you on this journey to, make sure that you could continue to retain it.
Right.
That's wonderful.
Right. That's the goal. It's all about getting people housed and keeping them there. Yeah.
And what a sense of dignity you're providing for people too then. And self-esteem, right? So you have a support system and the support system's there for you.
Right.
I appreciate that.
Is there anything the community can do to be helpful?
Oh my gosh, Timber, there are so many things.
Yes,
many things.
Let's talk to them.
We rely on over $2 million a year in community financial support. So that's right at the top of the list. We rely on 1,000 or more volunteers a year. So if you know how to cook and you've got 3 or 4 friends and each of you is willing to put together a dish and one of you is willing to bring it over to the shelter, we would love to have you cook a meal. We serve 2 meals a day, 2 dinners a day at our 2 shelters every single day of the year. So cooking meals is serving meals is a huge need. Serving at our front desk at our shelter is a huge need. We've got many, many volunteer opportunities. And I think volunteering is the best way for people who aren't actually on that crew of 70 who make the work happen every day at Pillars to connect and get to know some of their neighbors who are going through experiences of homelessness. They're and pitching in and just being that person who smiles, right? That person who smiles on the street. That's the other way that people can help.
Who can people contact if they'd like to learn more?
They can call our services advocate. So Kim will pick up the phone. If you call Pillars Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., you'll hear from Kim. And Kim can get you connected to our team. Kim can get you connected to our volunteer manager. She can get you connected to services if that's what you need, whether those services are within Pillars or without. So give us a call, 920-734-9192.
We're going to make sure that we put this Pillars contact information in the podcast notes. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing this valuable information. I think this is so important. We know right now there's a lot of interest in the community about this. And I think people really want to be helpful. I just think there's a feeling of we don't know how.
Right.
And I'm hoping this helps to clarify how to get involved
I
and how
hope
to
so,
be
too.
helpful and how to make a difference.
And one thing I heard too is I can be helpful from my own house, or I could be helpful being there in person.
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. I've got a group of friends. One of them plans our meals when we donate meals, and they bring them to my place. That's all they have to do. So, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. It's time for shout outs.
All right.
All right, Lisa, who do you want to shout out?
Well, the very first group of people I need to shout out are our frontline staff, our advocates, our case managers, those people who are doing the work alongside of our clients and our tenants and our program participants every single day. They are flat out amazing. I want to shout out our clients, our tenants, and our program participants because they do the hardest work. They are doing the hardest work of all in overcoming those barriers to housing that they need to overcome. I want to shout out the city of Appleton, not just because that's where I happen to be sitting right now while I'm chatting with you two, but because the city of Appleton has been a tremendous partner to us in meeting housing needs and addressing homelessness. The Appleton Police Department, they're great partners to us. Appleton Area School District, they provide great services to the same folks we do. Partnership Community Health Center, Harbor House, the Grand Chute Police Department. We have so many. It takes an entire community to meet the needs that are out there, and we have wonderful, wonderful partners to help us do that.
Agreed. And thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, we're going to start wrapping up. Podcast listeners, you already know we are a work in progress. Let us know how we're doing. Please don't hesitate to share. Reach out to us at diversity@appleton.org. Once again, that's diversity@appleton.org. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know if you'd like to be a guest, or contact us and let us know if you know someone that should possibly, or an organization that should possibly be on Appleton Engaged. We will reach out and we'd love to have them. Also, listeners, please take the time to subscribe to this podcast. Subscribe, leave us a review. That's the way that others get to learn about us. It raises the profile. We get in people's algorithm, and that's what we want. We think we've got something pretty special going on here, and we would really love if the others in our community could learn about Appleton Engaged.
Yeah, and Lisa, thank you so much for coming and talking with us. This was really wonderful. And thank you for your time, for coming here. Thanks for sharing these different ways that we can be involved, and also just things for us to know. And thanks for your leadership. You're doing really great work in the community, and it's felt by a lot of people, I think. Your dedication is great. So thank you for you and your staff, all that they're doing.
Thank you. It was a joy. It is a joy.
All right. Thank you, podcast listeners.